What is up, guys? The doctor is back in the office, and today we're going to be doing a full card breakdown of UFC Fight Night. Sean iCarly Guard Strickland versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, friend of the channel. Shout out to his wife if he sees this. Not in that way. We're just friends on TikTok. Fluffy, I would never try and hit on your wife. You guys are perfect for each other. Let's get right into this. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. We got a great card here where we've got, plenty of names outside of the main event. Geoff Neal versus Uros Medic. 100K Dan Ige versus Melquizael Costa. Serghei Spivac versus Ante Delija. Jacoby Smith, Zachary Reese versus Michel Pereira. And Carlos Leal is also on this card. Again, let's start off with the early prelim opener of Carly Judice versus Juliana Miller. What a little matchup we have right here. Not a bad opener, honestly. You got Carly Judice, who's 2-1 in the UFC. Back-to-back finishes. Juliana Miller, 2-2. And I think I'm going to go with Judice here. Just better finishing potential, solid striker, pretty entertaining, actually a pretty fun prospect at women's flyweight. I'm going to take her by round 3 TKO, and I know what you're saying. Doc, you're picking a fucking women's fight to end in a finish. Carly Judice is fucking legit, and she can get it done. Is there any other interesting things to note? She's from Louisiana, so she's literally Dustin Poirier maxing. Up the card, we go to Yadira Delvalle versus Jordan Leavitt. Delvalle obviously was in that whole Isaac Dalgarian betting scandal where he subbed Dalgarian really fucking rather quickly, even though Dalgarian was like this really legit prospect at featherweight. It was a little bit of a weird win, so you don't really know what to make of Delvalle, but he is legit, in my opinion. 2-0, 2 subs, both by round 1. Obviously, again, had that match where whatever you want to make of it, Isaac Dalgarian, you're a fucking bum. But I'm leaning Yadira Delvalle here. I mean, Leavitt down to 145 in this fight. I think this is his 145 debut. Has had some notable losses at lightweight to guys like Chase Hooper, Paddy Pimblett, Claudio Puelles. And Delvalle has good offensive grappling. Leavitt's striking is kind of shit, and he can honestly get outstruck in the feet in this fight. And is not really as good of an athlete. He is a pretty solid grappler, but again, worse athlete. I'm going to go with Delvalle by round 2 submission. I just like this win for him. I could see a world where maybe Jordan Leavitt can smudge him at times with the wrestling. He is kind of a little bit bigger and longer, but I just lean on the kind of the prospect hype of Yadira Delvalle. Up the card, we go to a welterweight matchup between John Paul I can't fucking pronounce this guy's last name, versus Phil Rowe. JP versus Phil Rowe. Debut for John Paul, coming off a sick round 1 finish on the Contender Series. Has really good jiu-jitsu. Phil Rowe's coming off an absolute stinker against Seok Ko, the Korean Tyson, who really threw no punches and fucking blobbed on him. I don't think that's a bad loss by any means. I think Ko is pretty decent at welterweight. And before that, Phil Rowe beat Ange Lusa. But guy's just way too inconsistent. Like, he is really long and rangy, as you can see here. He's, 6'3" with an 81-inch reach. So he's a lot bigger than JPL. But he just, you think for a guy who's that big, he'd want to keep the fight on the outside. He oddly wants to get in the pocket with you. But he's so easy to take down. I think JPL is going to take him down and can kind of just fucking smudge him if he wants to. You're also in a world where Phil Rowe will get taken down and he's not really looking to take risks. He'll just sit there and fucking do nothing. The only thing that worries me is that John Paul's kind of a midget and Phil Rowe's the freak. But again, he can grapple well, has solid striking, can smudge Phil Rowe. I think he either gets this done by late submission or decision. I'm going with decision for JPL. I think Phil Rowe's decent. Just whatever. He's just way too inconsistent for me to pick him confidently in a fight versus a pretty hyped up and pretty solid prospect, in my opinion. Up the card, we go to one of my favorite fights of the card, Brahimaj versus Cornolle Soriano. Both these guys, honestly, you could make an argument, are more deserving than to fight a ranked guy than Uros Medic, and they're this far down on the card. But really fun fight. Both guys have finishing potential. You got Brahimaj, who started out pretty shaky in the UFC, but has really turned his career around with Belal Muhammad. By training with Belal Muhammad, won his last 3 fights all by finish, including, submission win over Austin Vanderford at UFC 320 by guillotine. And then I think he also had beaten Mickey Gall and somebody else, I forget who it was, by submission before that. You have a guy in Prelims, Soriano, who also fought on that UFC 320 card and kind of just wrestle fucked Nikolai Veretennikov, where, you know, he just dominated him, pretty much just smudged him the whole fight. Kind of got caught in some guillotines, which I'll bring up a little bit later, but he looked overall pretty solid in that fight. Soriano also had a nice win over Uros Medic, speaking of him, and won by finish there. Soriano's going to go for a lot of takedowns, mainly double legs, and he's just going to slam you like kind of that DC style where he gets that high crotch and just dumps you. Also has some power in his hands, but more technical fighters can kind of give him some trouble, and he does gas out as fights go on. So I think he's definitely going to start out really strong in this first fight. I lean towards Brahimaj. I really like how he's been improving in his finishing ability and just overall by working with Belal. I think Juliana Pena's there, and Yair Rodriguez. It's a really solid gym overall. He has nasty guillotines that were, you know, there for Nikolai Veretennikov against Punahele Soriano. He just couldn't get one in. I mean, Veretennikov must have had like 10 guillotine attempts in that fight and couldn't get any of them to actually go down and land. So I'm gonna take Brahimaj by guillotine somewhere in like round 2 or round 3. I just think he's better. Guy's a better prospect at welterweight. And if you're really on the fence, just pick a dude with Belal in his corner. I mean, Belal's aura can carry Brahimaj. I'm going to go by round 3 submission. I think this is going to be a really kind of interesting fight. I could really see it going either way, but I'm leaning towards Ramiz Brahimaj by late submission. Moving up the card, we go to Nora Cornolle versus Jocelyn Edwards. Sorry if I butchered your last name there. And for real hardcores, this is actually a rematch from like 2 years ago. These chicks fought, or almost 3 years ago. They fought in 2023. Nora won. Edwards is on a pretty nice run now in the UFC, though. She's won 3 in a row, all by finish, has made visible improvements. Cornhole has lost 2 of her last 3 and just hasn't really looked that good. I like Edwards by decision in the grudge match, 29-28. You knew we had to get 29-28 classic women's decision on here. Very John Cena versus The Rock vibes. Nora Cornholle, obviously The Rock, wins that first fight. Now Jocelyn Edwards, La Pantera, is coming back to get her get back, and she's going to win this by nasty 29-28 decision. Up the card, we go to Alden Coria versus Luis Kincaid Gurule. I like Coria here, you know, stepped in on short notice, put a beating on Alessandro Costa, who is this very hyped up prospect at flyweight. And honestly, I thought I picked Alessandro Costa to win. I think that was one of my really first cards I had ever done on the channel. I think it was UFC Noche in San Antonio. It was the Lopez versus Silva card, I believe. And he got a nice finish in September. He's a 4-ounce Fight Club guy. So he's one of Joshua Van, Michael Aswell's boys. Has really solid, slick boxing. And Luis Kincaid Gurule is just fucking old. And he's got a little bit of a Baraka look going on. Just not a great looking dude. And got styled on by my boy, Jesus Aguilar. I also think that was at UFC Noche. Got finished by Ode Osbourne before that. Coria also has a 2-inch, I believe he has a 2-inch height or 3-inch height advantage and 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. I think he could just piece up Gurule from range, mix in his boxing really well, gets a finish in the second round to beat Luis Kincaid Gurule. I'm very confident in this. I just don't think he's that good. I was not impressed by his last performance. Up the card we go to the feature fight on the prelims. Ode Osbourne versus Alibi Idiris. And I don't really get any of the Alibi Idiris hype whatsoever. I never really thought this... Hold on, is my screen a little bit dirty? There we go. I never really got a lot of the Alibi Idiris like hype. He was this guy on Tough who had won a couple fights on there and was one of like DC's guys on there. But then he just got beat up pretty bad by Joseph Morales in his last fight. He's like an odd goofball because you'd think he'd wrestle a lot because he's from Kazakhstan. But he just kind of like randomly mixes it in the clinch, and he throws a lot of weird spinning attacks, like spinning elbows and spinning kicks. And Ode Osbourne's pretty experienced. Chin Steve Erceg in his last fight, even though he lost, he's a lot rangier and a lot faster and a better athlete than Idiris. The one issue that he kind of has is that he can overextend at times, but he does have really nice power. And in the first round, he is so fucking dangerous. And I think he's going to chin Alibi Idiris. I'm just not high on Idiris whatsoever. Ode Osbourne can be a sound defensive grappler and could shut down if Idiris tries to mix in the grappling. I think he gets like a check hook in the second round. Idiris is just too inaccurate, and I don't really even think he's that good. So I'm pretty confident that Ode Osbourne is going to win this. And I've seen, if you actually look at the tap, like a lot of people think Idiris is going to win this. I don't see it. I'm not very high on this guy. Not that the Joseph Morales loss is necessarily bad, because Joseph Morales, he subbed Matt Schnell in his next fight. Not that Matt Schnell is a good win either, but it's not like the guy sucks in terms of Joseph Morales. But I just don't see it with him. And whatever. Up the card we go to Chitty Bang Bang. Chitty Njokuani versus Carlos Leal. I gave up on the name. I got to get better at pronouncing these names. But Chitty Bang Bang versus Carlos Leal. I think there's a world where Carlos Leal just nukes Chitty really in the first round. I mean, this guy just goes headhunting for people, has really shit striking defense. But like, can I trust Carlos Leal? What did I step on there? Can I trust Carlos Leal after the Muslim Salikov fight, where I was so convinced Carlos Leal was going to win? I told so many people to put money on him. And then he just gets fucking flatlined and shut down. Like, Chitty has a lot of experience in the UFC, beat Reese McKee, beat Marc-Andre Barrios. And I think that, like, Rinat Fakhretdinov fight, like, made a lot of people think Carlos Leal is actually good, even though he lost it, but it was kind of a robbery, and it was in Saudi Arabia. I think it was in Saudi Arabia, a lot of shady shit going on there. I just fuck you, Carlos Leal, because early on in my, like, kind of build up to this channel where I was really watching a lot of tape and stuff, I thought this guy was pretty fucking good, but he's just a PED using ball of steroids. And Chitty, he is a lot bigger, like a 4-inch height advantage and 6-inch reach advantage. I honestly think he could win this. Beat Leal up in the clinch, has a pretty nice jab. We'll just piece Leal up as the fight goes on. And Carlos Leal, maybe he's a little bit hesitant to throw a lot because he got knocked out pretty bad in his last fight. So I think Chitty's gonna win this by a round 3 TKO. Either way, I think somebody's getting finished here. I think Carlos Leal is either bombing him early, maybe Chitty bombs him early. Who knows? But that's what I think for the prelims. Moving on to the main card opener of Zachary Reese versus Michel Pereira. One of the oddest fights ever. Really goofball matchup. And pre-Israel, Michel Pereira was tough. Before this guy was fucking selling out to the big Yahoo, he was pretty tough. But the guy has zero cardio, doesn't have any chin. Like, his striking and his takedown defense suck. And Zachary Reese has actually shown visible improvements in his last couple of fights. Won 2 of his last 3. Also, and the only fight that, like, doesn't count as a win was because Cedricus Dumas took an easy way out on a ball shot that was fucking questionable. But whatever. I think Zachary Reese can mix in takedowns pretty well. Smudge Michel Pereira. Just has to survive the first round where Michel Pereira will be doing fucking backflips off the Jumbotron, flying knees, a bunch of bullshit. Michel Pereira's lost 3 in a row. Looked garbage against Fluffy. Bad against Abus Magomedov, and got finished by Kyle Dawkins recently. And he's also losing his athleticism. He's on his way to being cut. And it can't be understated how bad this guy's gas tank is. You saw it against Magomedov. Like, Michel Pereira needs a first-round finish. If you're taking Michel Pereira, it's by first-round finish. I think there's more avenues for Zach Reese to win. Better grappler, like, has power in his hands. I think I'm going to take him by second-round TKO. Like, at the very least, if you're on the fence here, just be like, at least Zachary Reese has shown that he can get better as a fighter in the UFC. Michel Pereira has just been sliding for, look at me, has just been sliding for a while. I'm taking Zachary Reese by second round finish. Up the card, we go to Jacoby Smith versus Josiah Harrell. I'll say this about Jacoby Smith. Really, really nasty ground and pound. Obviously, some people just remember this guy for screaming Joe Rogan into the mic like 100 times in his last fight. And fun fact about Josiah Harrell, this guy was supposed to, like, debut against JDM back in 2023. Had this medical issue where I think he had to get surgery on his brain. Has, like, come back. Who did he beat? Melvin Gillard? Is that how you say his last name? Gillard? He beat that Brandon Black guy. You know him. He was from Tough. Fought in the UFC for a while. Beat him in some random promotion. Stepping in on short notice for Seok Ko. Inspiring story. But I'm here to tell you right now, we do not care. Jacoby Smith's going to win. He's a very strong grappler. Again, elite ground and pound. I don't know if it's at the Armin Sarukian level yet, but it's on the way to being that. I'm telling you, this guy has fucking elite level ground and pound. And he'll just take you down and look to end your life. It's not really like as much submissions. I mean, he does have that, but he's really going to fucking just bash your head in. I like Jacoby Smith here. I think he comes out aggressive, shows his grappling prowess, gets some nasty ground and pound, and gets a TKO in the late part of the first round. And Josiah Harrell, still an inspiring story, but it's not your time yet. The muscle hamster is not ready to win yet. Up the card we go to Serghei Spivac versus Ante Delija. Both Waldo Cortez Acosta victims, even though Serghei Spivac low-key kind of got robbed against Waldo. But I think Ante is going to win this. I think he's a lot better on the feet. The grappling gap, like, I do think it exists, but I don't think it's as big as in terms of the gap that's on the feet. Serghei Spivac is actually an elite grappler for heavyweight. You might be saying, is he really? He's not really an elite grappler. For heavyweight, he is, because he knows how to do a fucking arm bar, so that makes him elite. Ante Delija beat Marcin Tybura, who's one of the GOAT gatekeepers of the division, so he has to be decent. Ante Delija, he could defend takedowns, and, Spivac, that's what he's going to be trying to do. I think he could do it to a similar level of a Cyril Gahn, a Tom Aspinall, Waldo. Not saying he's as good as those guys, because I don't think he is, but I do think he at least has the skill to defend the takedowns of Serghei Spivac. And Spivac and Ante Delija isn't a fat slob like a Derek Lewis or a Tai Tuivasa, where Serghei Spivac could just take them down and fucking submit them. I think he is a little bit at least more skilled than that. And if Serghei Spivac can't get a takedown, he's got no fucking chance. He's fucked. His striking defense sucks. I think he's gotten better on the feet, but I think Ante Delija can just run in, rush in, pour shots down at him, finish him along the cage. Like, he nearly did it to Waldo, and I know Waldo backs up a lot to the cage, and there was that eye poke in there, but he can put pressure on really anybody and can finish you, has power, is skilled. I'm going to take him by round one finish. I also think there's a war where maybe Serghei Spivac can get him down early, but I have enough faith in Ante Delija's takedown defense. Moving on to the feature fight on the main card, we got Dan 100K Ige, no longer 50K, versus Melquizael Costa. Melky Costa, that's what I call him. We call him Melky the Dalmatian. He's actually black, but he looks a little bit white. We don't really know what happened to him. I'm done with Dan Ige after the Pitbull fight. I've always been a big Dan Ige fan, regardless of him kind of being a 500 fighter. But the Patricio Pitbull fight pissed me off so much. Dan Ige didn't do fucking shit in that fight. Costa, I think, is pretty legit at featherweight. Not saying this guy is, winning the belt material, but I definitely think he's top 15th ranked material. That's why he's getting this fight, Kieran. Dan Ige, if you aren't top 15 material, you lose to Dan Ige. You know what I mean? Like Sean Woodson, Andre Feely, Nate Landwehr, Damon Jackson, like all those guys not top 15 material, Dan Ige beats them. And then he loses to guys like Lerone Murphy, Diego Lopez, Pitbull, all guys who were top 15. Melky Costa is a legit prospect. Destroyed Morgan Charrier in his last fight. Has some nasty submissions in his game. And this isn't the kind of guy that Dan Ige is going to style on. Like, Dan Ige is just trying to box and wrestle. That's it. I think he can still make this a close fight because he is a fucking blockhead and he's hard to finish, but I think he loses by decision. It's not like, originally I was thinking, hey, maybe Costa can get a finish here, but he's not some insane finisher. Like, does he have the ability to do it? Yes, and Dan Ige old, and has he taken some damage recently? Yes, so I don't think it's a bad play if you want to put if you want to see Costa if you want to put some money on Costa getting a finish. But I don't think it happens. But Costa's going to use his kicks effectively, keep his distance, pick apart Dan Ige, defend some takedowns, probably gets taken down and smudged maybe in like the second round, and Dan Ige loses the fight by like 29-28 decision and then acts like it was a robbery. I'm going to take Melky Costa by 29-28 unanimous decision. I have not picked a lot of decisions in this fight. I think it's going to be a pretty stacked one in terms of finishes all around. Up the card, we go to Geoff Neal versus Uros Medic in the co-main. What an odd co-main. If this was like the feature fight and we had a slightly better co-main, I'd be fucking so excited for this card. Obviously I'm still excited, but I think that would really level it up. But either way, Geoff Neal versus Uros Medic is a weird fight. I don't really have a ton of confidence in either guy. Both southpaws. Geoff Neal's old, got flatlined recently by Carlos Prates in his last fight. Other than that, it's never been put out cold by anyone. I mean, he's been subbed by Shavkat, but he's never been knocked out cold. Uros got put out by Cornolle Soriano, subbed by Jalen Turner, subbed by Oralby. I lean Neal here, though. Like, he is a more technical boxer, more technical striker, has good distance management, has elite takedown defense. Not that I think that's really going to come into play against Uros Medic. I don't really expect Geoff Neal to see a lot of takedowns in this fight, but Medic can use his kicks pretty well. Has some nasty feints. He can chew you up with the feints, man. We saw Ian Gary and Shavkat use that to their advantage against Geoff Neal and beat Geoff Neal. Medic can also time an uppercut pretty well if you're trying to go for takedowns on him. But the problem is Uros Medic, I think his striking defense is kind of terrible. Like he can kind of be pretty easily hit. I lean Geoff Neal, just better, more technical, better overall striker. I think he could find a finish in round 2. I'm not super confident in this one because originally I was leaning Uros Medic. I'm like, Geoff Neal, old, doesn't really fight a lot anymore. Got brutally flatlined. But then you also look back at the dudes he loses to. He only loses to the elite of the elite. And at a certain point, that's going to stop. You know what I mean? You get old, you're not just going to keep fucking losing to, top 5 guys for forever. Or eventually you're gonna have a day where you run in and get chinned by a guy who is maybe ranked material, but not championship material. Maybe that's Uros Medic. Maybe that happens here. But I'm just gonna lean with Geoff Neal just because he's the better fighter and he is pretty durable. And I'm just gonna try and forget about the Carlos Prates fucking knockout because that was sad to see. Even though I picked Prates to knock him out, I still like Geoff Neal. He's a fucking cool ass dude. And I think he's sober for this fight. Sober Geoff Neal is kind of a mythical fighter if you think about it. Or maybe he's trying to get sober. I don't know. But this is a pro sobriety channel. If you want to be sober, you could be fucking sober. If you want to get fucking wasted all the time, you could get wasted. Up the card we go to the main event of Sean Strickland versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. And man, I've been pretty split on this one because it sucks. Not the fight. The fight's fucking incredible. But Fluffy is a nightmare matchup for so many dudes in this division. I think he honestly he could pretty much beat anybody in this division other than Hamzat and probably DDP, but he could probably beat everybody else pretty confidently. And then you have this Sean Strickland guy who can counter a ton of the strengths of Fluffy Hernandez. My brain says Sean Strickland. I'm going to talk about all the reasons why I think Sean Strickland can win this. My heart says Fluffy. And if Fluffy loses, you're going to be like, why did we pick against Sean Strickland? Strickland's a, more technical striker, put a ton of pressure on you, has a nasty jab, can teeps to the body, can throw off your takedown game. And, I just think it's going to be difficult for Fluffy to entirely get his game working in this fight. I just fucking blanked on what I was going to say. He can disrupt the takedown game of Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. He has the cardio to match Fluffy and the experience in big main events that Fluffy lacks. Sean Strickland beat Nasser Nimavov. I know it was, a little asterisk there, but he beat Israel Adesanya. Was competitive with Dricus in the first fight. Even in the second fight, he flies halfway across the world to Australia, injured, and still hung in there with 5 rounds against DDP. Still impressive. And another thing about Sean Strickland, that guy, you can get takedowns off him, not super easily. I mean, even Dricus kind of has these goofy takedowns on him, but he's hard to control and keep on the ground. And Fluffy's trying to get you to the ground, get that body lock, drag you to the ground, get on top, and just fucking pound on you. I think that's going to be difficult to do against Sean Strickland. And another thing is, Fluffy gets rocked a lot in these fights. I know there's a lot of discourse about how he's weak to the body, but even Brendan Allen rocked him with a left, and you really think this guy's going to Roman Dolidze Sean Strickland? I don't really think that. And another thing about Sean Strickland, he can kind of struggle with guys who can effectively throw body kicks and head kicks. Fluffy, you're not really going to get that. He doesn't really even have the power of a DDP. You're kind of getting this sloppy, weird, goofball striking for Fluffy where he's going to throw in calf kicks, throw a lot of lead hooks at you, just throw a ton of volume on you. And really only physical specimens beat Sean Strickland like a Alex Pereira, like a DDP. I wouldn't even know if I'd say DDP is a physical specimen, but he is a specimen. And even a Kamaru Usman, when they fought at welterweight, he really only loses to the best of the best. And another thing, you could talk all about Fluffy, how elite his cardio is. Michel Pereira has no cardio. Roman Kopylov has no wrestling. Brendan Allen, he's decent. And Dolidze is legitimately a brick. The guy's so fucking stupid. This is such a massive jump in competition. And again, you can't really land super cleanly on Sean Strickland. can't really land a ton of nice combos on him. Like, you have to replicate a DDP game plan. I think Flying Squirrel said that. You have to replicate a DDP game plan against Sean Strickland. If you have to replicate a DDP game plan, and not only in the octagon, but just in life, that's fucking tough to do because he's a one of one. You essentially, like, Fluffy's going to need a Marab Max, Sean Strickland, get the body lock, break him down, and just smash him, man. And he's really only done that to shitbags. And I think Sean Strickland can neutralize these strengths of Fluffy. Now, I know if you're still watching this video, you're like, when is he just going to say Sean Strickland by decision? I say all these things, but fuck it, I'm done with Sean Strickland. Like, I can read his mind. I don't think he really wants it anymore. I think Fluffy could come in here, spam a ton of takedowns, Marab Max, and will win. And you can, you could talk about the Drickus fights and his physicality, and he couldn't hold down Sean, but I think Anthony Hernandez is a higher level grappler than DDP. You know what I mean? I think he can do enough damage on the ground to win. He's going to spam that lead hook, spam ugly takedowns, just put a ton of volume on it. It's not going to look super technical, but he's just going to marauder this guy. And again, could I see a world where Sean Strickland, even if he gets taken down, he could break the grips, get back up, and do enough? Yes. And honestly, I think that's the more realistic outcome. But fuck it. Fluffy's family, his wife follows me on TikTok. I think he's going to Marab Max and get it done. If he can keep Sean Strickland on his back foot enough, he can win this fight. Not a ton of great analysis for me on Fluffy. Honestly, I think Sean Strickland has a lot more avenues to win this in terms of, I think he actually is the better fighter, but I'm banking on just Sean Strickland being not a wash, but I just kind of am done with Sean Strickland. I want Fluffy to win. There hasn't been too many instances on this channel of me like actually picking against what I like in my analysis, what I think is going to happen, and just going with my heart. Like Pereira, I did that with, but Alex Pereira, honestly, I had like no hope that not none, but I had little hope that he was going to beat Ankalaev. This is more of like a 55-45. I lean towards Strickland, but I'm just going to fucking go with Fluffy because I like him. I think Sean Strickland could kind of come out here sometimes and just have zero game plan, like a shit game plan where he doesn't fight with a lot of urgency. Next thing you know, you're down like 3-1 going into the fourth, and Eric Nixick is telling you that you're up like 3-1. That's my problem. I just don't, like, he can just be an idiot sometimes and not get a finish and not fight with enough urgency. I will say, though, it is a little bit crazy how much like people on Tapology are riding with Anthony Hernandez here. I think this is a really close fight. I think logically, Sean Strickland wins this, but I think I'm going to go with Anthony Hernandez by 48-47 decision. Either way, I think they're both kind of interesting matchups for Khamzat in the middleweight division. I think they both lose to Khamzat, don't get me wrong, but I'm leaning Anthony Hernandez. If you pick Sean Strickland, I wouldn't blame you. Most of my analysis for this fight was pro Sean Strickland, but I do think Hernandez I do think there's a world where he can just totally disrupt Sean Strickland's game. Like, as much as you want to talk about the iCarly guard and how Sean Strickland, is really tough to take down, has good takedown defense, you can't hold this guy down, and he's, very sound on the feet. Fluffy could just come out here and just fucking fuck shit up. Could just come out here and be a fucking goofball, like more than a DDP, and literally could just Marab Max and just show off that good cardio. And maybe we've only really seen it against shit cans. We've only seen it against garbage fighters. But now it's time to do it against Sean Strickland. I get it's a big jump up, but Fluffy, if you're hearing this, I think you're going to win by decision. And we're going to beat Khamzat Chimaev. But either way, I'm going with Anthony Hernandez by decision. I think it's going to be a close fight. Could see Sean Strickland winning, honestly. I think it's more likely that he wins. But for the sake of the channel, I'm going with Anthony Hernandez to just go out here, cardio mog Sean Strickland, really disrupt Sean Strickland's game, and win this by 48-47 decision. That's what I believe in my heart is going to happen. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for all the support over on IG and TikTok. Fuck you, Dan Hooker. You have shooters or something in TikTok that maybe take down that video because I started talking about how you were gay. So I don't really know, fuck you for that. But that's the recap. Let me know what you guys think of my predictions down in the comments below. Hopefully we can go like another 13 for 14 on this card and continue our hot streak in 2026. The doctor is signing off. Thank you for watching.